If you've spent years working the land, studying how civilizations rose and fell on the strength of their soils, or simply trying to revive a stubborn garden bed, you already know that earthworms are the quiet workforce behind every fertile field in human history. Yet, there's a trick, an old, mostly forgotten liquid formula that farmers rarely acknowledge publicly, even though it's worked for generations. It's the kind of thing you only hear whispered among old-timers who've spent their lives watching soil behave like a living organism. And once you understand why it works, you start to see how our ancestors achieved soil fertility levels that modern growers struggle to replicate. This formula isn't store-bought, it isn't expensive, and it doesn't require high-tech equipment. But it has a strange ability to attract worms into dead ground almost overnight, and where worms go, fertility always follows. Before we dive in, let me hook you with the real reason farmers don't talk about this liquid. Those who know it guard it because it gives them an edge, one that takes poor ground and flips it into a productive bed without backbreaking tilling or expensive amendments. And once worms are drawn to a spot, they're not just visitors. They aerate, enrich, restructure, and transform the soil from the inside out. This trick works so reliably that once you use it, your soil starts doing the hard work for you. That's the power of the worm magnet liquid. The secret farmers knew was that worms don't just seek food. They seek scent, moisture, and microbial heat. Worms aren't attracted to nutrients the way a beginner might assume. They navigate through chemical signals, moisture gradients, and the byproducts of microbial activity. The old formula takes advantage of that by creating a scent signature that worms travel toward, even through compacted or clay-heavy soil. The trick relies on ingredients that naturally break down fast and, well, generate microbial blooms. When the mixture begins to ferment, that microbial activity releases compounds worms detect from a distance. These compounds are the same signals released by decaying leaf litter in ancient forest floors, which you know explains why undisturbed woodland soils are always rich with worms. The foundation of the liquid is a combination of starch, sugar, and protein. Nothing synthetic, nothing complicated, just components that microbes can consume rapidly. When the microbes explode in number, worms sense the activity and move in to capitalize on the buffet. This is why older farmers who grew up in difficult soils relied on this method. It bypasses the need to build organic matter first by calling worms in to do that job for you. Now, the worm magnet liquid is made by fermenting 3 simple kitchen ingredients into a microbial attractant. To create this attractant, you only need a starch source like rice water, a small amount of sugar, such as molasses or brown sugar, and a protein scrap like old milk, or even just a bit of whey. You add these to a container of water and let the mixture sit loosely covered for a few days until it begins to sour. The scent isn't pleasant, but, well, that's the point. What you're creating is an active microbial slurry that releases signals worms can detect even through hardened soil. This mixture, when diluted and poured into the ground, acts like a beacon. A practical example of using this on dead soil is during the early planting season. If a bed is compacted from winter rains or, historical misuse, you can prepare the attractant and pour it directly into shallow trenches across the bed. Within days, worms begin tunneling into the area, breaking up the soil from below. Another application is in clay soil reclamation. Instead of battling the clay with tools, the liquid is poured around the edges of the area. Worms come in naturally, loosening the structure and incorporating organic matter as they move. The power of this liquid is that it forces soil biology into motion even when conditions seem hopeless. Dead soil is usually dead for one reason. Nothing is feeding the microbes. And if microbes are inactive, worms stay away. But when you add the worm magnet liquid, you jumpstart the microbial community. As microbes break down the sugars and starches, they generate carbon dioxide, organic acids, and, well, a bit of trace heat. These signals mimic natural stages of decomposition, which worms instinctively seek out. Once worms arrive, they bring in castings rich with enzymes, nitrogen, and beneficial bacteria. Over several weeks, this transforms the structure of the soil so dramatically that, plants respond with deeper roots and much faster growth. Now, a good way to actually observe the transformation is to dig a small test hole before you apply the liquid. Just note the texture, the moisture, and even the smell of the soil. Then repeat this little test about 2 weeks after application. Many gardeners, report seeing worm tunnels where there were none before, along with soil that's darker and more friable. Within about a month, plant roots start to penetrate deeper and, they resist drought better, all thanks to the improved structure of the soil. This method endures because it's simple, repeatable, and honestly, it's rooted in old agricultural wisdom. The reason this formula survived across generations is that it worked in every type of soil: clay, sand, rocky ground, or even those abandoned homestead beds. Farmers who had no access to industrial fertilizers, they leaned on biological methods, and that made all the difference. The worm magnet liquid is honestly a prime example of low technology solving a high-stakes problem. In survival situations where every scrap of fertility really matters, this little trick becomes even more valuable. The ingredients, they can be found in any kitchen, and the process requires no tools beyond a jar and a bit of patience. Even modern growers, especially those who focus on regenerative methods, quietly use variations of this tonic. Some folks add vegetable wash water, others incorporate small amounts of compost tea, but the principle stays the same. Ferment a simple mixture, then use it to signal worms to mobilize. And now that you know the trick, you can put it to use immediately. Whether you are rehabilitating a dead bed, preparing new land for planting, or running a survival garden with minimal resources, this liquid gives you leverage. One proper application often shifts the entire biological trajectory of the soil. If you want consistent worm activity throughout a season, you can repeat the application monthly, or pour a small amount into a trench that acts as a permanent attractant zone. With repeated use, your garden becomes a worm-maintained ecosystem that needs less interference from you. If this breakdown of the worm magnet liquid gave you value, help deepen your understanding of soil biology, or connected modern gardening to the forgotten wisdom of earlier generations, make sure you subscribe to Hydrohaven and share this video. Your support keeps this knowledge alive and helps others rediscover the methods that built the fertile fields of the past.